The rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of savings in an emergency. So you have that as a fund, just kind of built it in, right?
That's the just in case.
Yeah.
Well, Richmond money expert J.B. Bryan is back to share some helpful tips to protect your nest egg if you lose your job, because it could be more than 6 months before you find another one. Hi, J.B.
Hi, and it's good to be here talking about this topic because the government's accounting office, the Government Accountability Office, did a survey and they found that the average person between the age of 55 and 64 has about just over $100,000 saved on average. So when you bring in a person in that age group that is faced with unemployment or looking for a new position and then faced with being told that they're overqualified, and it is happening, it's a special situation that we don't talk about a lot. Is that when you feel like you don't have enough saved and then you're faced with a job change. Many corporations are letting people go or downsizing right at that time when you're 55 plus and you're not ready to retire.
And that's the final leg working up towards retirement. And obviously now it may be coming a little sooner than you wanted to.
That's right.
At least as a full-time
career.
That's
right. And it's before you get your benefits.
That's right. And you mentioned about the three-legged stool of retirement, and that's something we use in the industry that talks about pension, your savings, and Social Security.
What's a pension?
That's right. Very good point.
There's
so few pensions out there now. Yeah. So that stool has definitely changed. So what happens if you don't have a third leg, if you don't have a pension, or you've been told you have to leave work or you have to leave that job and you're not going to be able to touch your pension until you're 65, and then you want to put off Social Security as long as possible. It's like getting through that gap. And the biggest part is to protect your retirement by developing a budget. Anyone that's in that age group and you want to protect, in any age group really, develop a budget. But if you're faced with unemployment and you want to protect your retirement savings, you need to decide, how much do I need to just sustain my style of living, and focus on making the sacrifices necessary to protect yourself. If you're ever met with the decision of, should I take out a loan during this time or use my home equity during this time because I'm not making as much income as possible, the answer to yourself should definitely be no. It is not the time to accumulate debt during a time, because many times people say, well, I need to do this right now. When I get the next job, I'll pay for it. Or when my salary increases, I'll pay for it later. It's just not a good strategy. You want to cut your expenses, follow a very tight budget, and live as modestly as possible during a time to protect your assets and to protect your savings. And before you let me go, I must mention that during this time of your life, you must protect your insurances. See, that could be one of the expenses where you say, well, I don't need the life insurance. Well, this challenge could be even more financially devastating to your family if you don't protect yourself and have the proper life insurance if something were to happen during this time. So what you may need to do is just adjust how much you're spending on it. You may switch to a term insurance policy versus a permanent insurance policy to cut your expenses in that area. But be very careful and make sure that when you set up your budget, keep your priorities in mind.
Especially since you've probably been paying into this insurance for a while. You don't want to let it go at this point.
It's not going to get any cheaper.
Right.
You're older. Right. That's a very good point.
By the way,
that's
get any
right,
cheaper.
A very good point.
And like you said, you really need to hang on to that as much as possible. What kind of discipline does it take, or do we come to somebody like you to figure out what we can let go, or what?
Yes.
Walk us through that.
Yes, and having a financial advisor on deck at that time in your life is vital. It's also a time for you to reflect. I call it like mirroring, to really look within yourself and say, if I'm faced with this, you're overqualified. And many times it's just that the employer doesn't want to pay you what you're accustomed to. So now it's your time to really sell to the employer how you can help that company financially by making that investment in you, that experienced person who is trying to bridge into retirement.
So that's the bridge work.
That's the bridge work. Bridge work is really something that's supposed to, I'm not ready to retire. So in a perfect world, bridge work would be 65 plus, like 65 to 70 or 65 on, that you just aren't ready. But bridge work has become a lifestyle for many people in their 50s, where they're bridging between them and getting to even early retirement because they know they can't afford to start spending their investments yet.
So if you're 55, you've been making really good money, or what you thought was good money, and now you can't, you've tried and it's not there. So the bridge has got to take you from 55 to 65 plus.
That's right.
And are you going to have to settle for something less to get across that bridge?
In many cases, there's research that shows that there's a lot of people, college graduates, when they looked at them in the workplace, many of them are overqualified for their current position. So if you factor that with you're 55 and you're coming with a degree and you have all of these years of experience, you may have to accept something that you didn't plan on at this point in your life because that your particular job has changed. So what you have to do is, how do I remarket myself? It may require rebuilding yourself, retrain yourself, because you may think that you're overqualified, but they may be looking at, but you don't quite have this particular skill that we need. So don't accept that excuse of being overqualified. You just change the conversation and make it work in your favor.
As always, great information from our friend J.B. Bryant.
Thank you.
Thank you much. And JB offers money seminars every Wednesday at noon, Sundays at 3 for business owners. The workshops are free, but pre-registration is required.